The road to freedom. The city was alive, glowing and restless. A sea of lights, sounds, and endless motion. Cars rushed through wet streets, horns echoed between tall buildings, and somewhere, beneath the neon haze, people moved like shadows in a dream that never stopped. And there, among millions of others, was Ethan, a young man with tired eyes and a soul that felt misplaced. He had a decent job, an apartment high above the traffic, and a life that looked fine from the outside. But every morning, as he looked out the window and watched the same cars, the same faces, the same rhythm of routine, something deep inside him whispered, "You're not living. You're just existing." That whisper grew louder with each passing day. He couldn't ignore it anymore. The spark. It all began on a quiet Friday evening. Rain was tapping against his window, soft and rhythmic, almost comforting. Ethan sat on the floor of his small apartment, surrounded by silence. He turned off his phone, turned off the lights, and listened to the sound of the city outside, distant, muffled, endless. His eyes drifted to a dusty photo on the shelf, a picture of his father standing beside an old motorcycle. His father had loved the road. He used to tell Ethan, "Son, some people search for happiness in people or money, but for me, it's in the wind. The road doesn't lie." That memory hit him like lightning. He could almost hear his father's laugh, smell the gasoline, feel the vibration of the engine under his hands. He smiled for the first time in weeks. Down in the garage, under a worn-out cover, the old motorcycle was still there, silent, waiting. He spent the whole night fixing it. He didn't know much about engines anymore, but his hands remembered what his heart had forgotten. He changed the oil, tightened the bolts, replaced the spark plugs. The smell of metal and oil filled the air. When the first light of dawn broke through the cracks in the garage door, he turned the key. The engine roared to life. It was as if the machine itself had been waiting for this moment. A rush of adrenaline hit him, freedom, pure and raw. He strapped on his helmet, zipped his old leather jacket, and looked once more at the city skyline behind him. Then, without a word, he started the ride. No destination, just the road. Into the wild. The highway stretched endlessly ahead. The city disappeared behind him, replaced by open skies and rolling hills. The wind was cold but alive, brushing against his face, carrying the scent of rain, pine, and something he hadn't felt in years: peace. Every mile took him further away from noise, closer to something real. He passed rivers that shimmered like silver, forests that whispered in the breeze, and fields painted gold by the morning sun. For the first time in so long, Ethan wasn't thinking. He was just being. Hours turned into days. He slept in his tent beside streams, cooked his food over small fires, watched stars scatter across the night sky. Each night the world fell silent around him. No phones, no deadlines, no crowds, only the crackle of fire and the sound of his own heartbeat. He began to realize something simple yet powerful. Happiness wasn't something you chased. It was something that happened when you stopped running from yourself. The climb. One morning, Ethan found himself at the base of the mountains, tall, majestic, and wild. He stopped, took off his helmet, and breathed in deeply. The air was crisp and pure. The road ahead twisted upward, disappearing into clouds. Something inside him whispered again, "Go higher." The ride became more difficult: steep curves, sharp winds, cold rain. His hands grew numb, his body ached, but he didn't stop. Every turn brought a new view: mist-covered valleys, waterfalls crashing down ancient rocks, eagles soaring high above the peaks. He laughed out loud, shouting into the wind, "I'm alive!" The echo bounced off the cliffs, returning to him like an answer. As he climbed higher, the world below grew smaller, quieter. The noise of life gone. Only the engine's heartbeat remained, steady and strong. And finally, he reached the top, a small clearing overlooking miles and miles of endless mountains. He parked the bike, took off his gloves, and sat down on a rock. The sky was turning orange, the sun sinking behind distant peaks. He had never seen anything so beautiful. The moment of truth. He closed his eyes. For the first time in years, his mind was still. No thoughts, no regrets, no noise. Just wind, warmth, and the deep silence of the mountains. He thought about who he used to be, the man chasing things that didn't matter, the man afraid of change. And then he realized that man was gone. He wasn't escaping the world anymore. He was finally part of it. The road had stripped away everything unnecessary, leaving only truth. When night fell, he built a small fire beside his motorcycle. The flames danced, painting his face with orange light. Above him, stars spread across the sky like endless constellations. Each one seemed to whisper, "You did it! You found yourself!" He smiled softly and leaned back against his bike and whispered into the night, "I'm home." The return. Ethan stayed in the mountains for several days. He woke with the sunrise, brewed coffee on his camp stove, and watched clouds drift lazily across the peaks. He didn't want to leave, but he knew he had to, not because the mountains were fading, but because he was ready to carry their silence within him. When he finally rode back down, something inside him had changed. The city was still noisy, still busy, but now it didn't bother him. Because now, when he heard the horns, he also remembered the sound of wind in the pines. When he saw gray buildings, he remembered golden sunsets over mountain tops. And when life tried to drown him in its noise again, he knew the road was still out there, waiting. The road never ends. Weeks later, Ethan hung a photo on his wall. His motorcycle parked on the edge of a mountain cliff, sun shining over endless valleys. He looked at it every morning before work, not as a memory, but as a reminder. Freedom isn't found in distance, it's found in presence, in courage, in wind, in choosing to live your way. And every now and then, when the city felt too heavy, Ethan would smile, grab his helmet, and whisper, "Let's ride again." Then, as the engine roared and the wind welcomed him back, the world became simple once more. Just a man, a road, and the heartbeat of the earth beneath his wheels.